This single statement of Eida from chapter 80 has single-handedly triggered one of the biggest possibilities in the world of Naruto. Boruto could actually be Shibai Otsutsuki, the god of his own verse, and the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. The whole death of Akebi connecting to the birth of Boruto was not meant to be a coincidence. Instead, it was the catalyst for a divine order, which would turn out to be the biggest plot twist of the story. The similarity of the horn, the outfits, the right eye, and even the Uzuhiko technique was all a part of a huge script, with all the other events, such as the emergence of Ishhiki, Shinjus' awakening, or the role of Amado are nothing more than stepping stones to the main deal. Every mysterious character or event at this point, be it the immunity of Sarada Sumire, Amado's role in misusing the divine DNA, or Kawaki becoming the ultimate enemy of Boruto, are all setups in his journey of being a god incarnate. The biggest inspiration behind the story, which comes from Dragon Ball and Matrix, have also fueled the Shibai theory. So there is literally a lot that will go down in this video, and for a good starting point, I have chosen a paradox which best explains the phenomenon of Shibai and Boruto being the same person. It's called the split timeline paradox, also known as the many worlds paradox. It's widely used in many pieces of fiction to explain how new timelines get created after something in the present changes. The split timeline paradox suggests that time doesn't flow in a single straight line. Every choice, intervention, or change in the present doesn't overwrite reality. Instead, it branches out reality into multiple coexisting timelines. Each branch plays out differently based on what has changed. This avoids the collapse problem of the paradoxes, like the grandfather paradox, as the original timeline continues to exist, but the change spawns a new one alongside it. Dragon Ball Z is one of the best examples to the many worlds paradox. The reason I'm using this example is also because many concepts of Boruto seem to have been derived from Toriyama's tale. I will get to them in a bit, but first let's understand the Dragon Ball example of this paradox. When Future Trunks goes back in time to warn Goku about the androids, he doesn't fix his own destroyed future. Instead, his warning creates a new parallel timeline where the events diverge, while his original Doom timeline still exists. This gets interesting because Boruto in his first battle against the Claw Grimes gave the same energy as Future Trunks, a swordsman who's fighting many Frieza look-alike creatures. You can't tell me this wasn't done on purpose. And it all makes more sense when you realize how Trunks and Boruto have the same exact goal: prevent the timeline from entering the worst possible future. I have already discussed in my previous videos that how some of the Boruto characters like Eida, Daemon, and Amado have their Dragon Ball counterparts, so the story using the same split timeline paradox is a huge possibility. This further solidifies with the reveal of Kami Otsutsuki from the special panel of Volume 1, as well as the prescience ability of Kashin Koji. Kami Otsutsuki is believed to be the deity behind the current universe of Boruto, as well as all its infinite possibilities. He was able to create this world with his power of omnipotence, meaning any Otsutsuki god with this ability can literally do that. Now when we look at Kashin Koji, who was upgraded with Shibai genes, he has unlocked the Shinjus of prescience, which allows him to see multiple futures, which could branch out differently by some minor changes in the timeline. Notice how the Kami panel says he created the infinite possibilities through omnipotence, while Kashin Koji can literally see those possibilities with the right foreknowledge. The fact that an omnipotence user can create futures and even manifest them makes it clear that an Otsutsuki god has power over literally everything in the universe, while Kashin Koji can only see the futures and then plan the best way out to avoid the bad ones. An Otsutsuki god could literally select a future and make it happen no matter what. Momoshiki revealed in chapter 79 that these gods have manipulated the memories of humanity before, meaning they had some agenda with the planet and its inhabitants. Now here is where the split timeline theory kicks in. I believe the Shibai Otsutsuki, who left his remains for Jigen, actually belonged to another universe. He entered this timeline, which was almost the exact same as the other ones, to make some ultimate changes, and those changes would have led to him being reincarnated as Boruto in this version of reality. This makes more sense when you consider how Amado and Jigen were able to find his remains, while Momoshiki said that he used to exist thousands of years ago, but right now he's no longer in this dimension. So a loop gets created with this revelation. The Shibai who transcended to another dimension did not actually transfer his consciousness. Instead, he took his whole body with him to another timeline, just like Future Trunks, and then he left the lifeless husk for Jigen to obtain, recreating his essence to be born as a human child. A pivotal hint that strengthens this theory is the daughter of Amado, Akebi Sanzu. There are more vital hints that I would cover as the video goes on, such as the Shibai cells being conscious while granting different Shinjus to the wielders, as well as the theological references which bound everything together. But first let me give you a real world example to explain how the transmigration of Shibai's soul led to the biggest domino effect in the story. In ancient cultures, the sky events were never random. A comet streaking across the heavens wasn't astronomy, it was seen as divine messaging. Words used to start or end, kings rose or fell, based on how the heavens moved. And Shibai's soul transfer would have been exactly that level of cosmic rupture. It must have created a ripple effect in fate, which decided the destinies of everyone whom the incarnate of the Otsutsuki god was going to meet in his lifetime. Just as in astrology, where a planet shifting houses changes destinies, Shibai's transmigration rippled across this timeline, starting with Akebi's death, which took place shortly after Shibai's departure. When the daughter of Amado died, Jigen around the same time found the remains of Shibai Otsutsuki, and then he started looking for a scientist who could utilize them in the perfect way to create Kara. And Amado exactly did that, on top of figuring out a better way to revive his daughter since he had become too desperate to get her back. But what no one would count for is the simple fact that Akebi's death was the anchor of all the abilities which shaped the life of Boruto. Amado out of desperation helped Jigen create cyborgs, which collectively contributed in changing Boruto's destiny. It started with Boro, who led to Momoshiki's manifestation, making Kawaki see him as a real threat. Then we had Code, who first unlocked Eida and Daemon, and then he went to fight Kawaki and Boruto, where Momoshiki emerged for the second time. This led to Kawaki killing Boruto, but in a turn of events, Momoshiki revived the vessel using his own DNA, turning him into a pure Otsutsuki. All of this got followed by Eida and Daemon's betrayal to Code and their cohabitation into Konoha, where Eida got close to Kawaki and eventually used her omnipotence to save him by switching the destinies of both the Kama wielders. Notice how Akebi's death had a hand in all of this, cause if she had never died, Amado wouldn't have modified all these cyborgs with the Shibai cells. Then we had Code, who used his own unique Shinjutsu to create the Claw Grimes, which eventually led to the birth of self-aware Ten-Tails humanoids who are now pushing Boruto to extreme measures, and rest is history. We also have Kashin Koji, whose Shibai cells triggered on the unexpected moment, making him the master of Boruto, who made him grow way too strong in no time. Now here is an out-of-box angle that I believe explains how Shibai has a hand in all of this. The cells of the Otsutsuki god that were used to modify these cyborgs could be self-aware too, cause if you think about it, if they are able to grant consciousness and intelligence to the Ten-Tails, what makes you think that they won't have a will of their own? It's kind of similar to how Kaguya manifested her will into Black Zetsu, but she wasn't controlling him all the time. Instead, the Zetsu himself planned out everything, from manipulating numerous people throughout history to ultimately betraying Madara in the end just to resurrect Kaguya. The Shibai cells may be no different, meaning the abilities given to all the cyborgs were chosen by the Otsutsuki god beforehand, cause he wants his incarnation to set up to some level before orchestrating his ultimate plan, which pushed him to jump between timelines. So a few things are pretty clear by now. Shibai switched timelines to reincarnate as Boruto. He used his divine cells to spread the best possible scenarios to make his incarnate stronger beyond limits. And there might even come a time when Boruto would meet different versions of himself from different realities. Well, if you think that's too much, just wait for the endgame part of this theory, which has been foreshadowed throughout the story. So let's first understand how the Shibai possibility explains the mysterious immunity of Sarada and Sumire from omnipotence. Well, I think this goes deeper than simply loving an Otsutsuki to stay immune. With Boruto being Shibai, every act of love towards him would get counted as worship. So in this case, Sarada and Sumire's love for Boruto has evolved into something divine and mystical, which prevents them from facing the worst effects of Aida's spell. And I would even say that this was planned by Shibai Otsutsuki too, in order to secure a safe future for Boruto. In case it was some other person in Boruto's place who had also turned into an Otsutsuki, I don't think their lovers would have been immune from this spell, simply because they would have lacked the divine attribute inherited by Boruto. Next up we have Momoshiki, who has read the entire fate of Boruto and is also well aware of his secret Otsutsuki inheritance. There's a chance that he's aware of Boruto's divine status as Shibai Otsutsuki, and what makes me believe this more comes from the statement of Momoshiki, where he looks into Boruto's eyes and tells him that those who defeat God cannot remain normal individuals. Well, at surface it may feel like he's talking about himself, but what if he's actually talking about about the prolonged fate of Boruto and Shibai Otsutsuki. Momoshiki could be referring to the time when Shibai fought and defeated another Otsutsuki god, the same fate that Boruto might sooner or later walk upon, simply because he is the Shibai of this timeline. A huge hint to back this up comes from the destroyed Otsutsuki sigils in the Ten Tails dimension. Out of all the tablets, only 2 were destroyed, which could signify that both of them transcended into godhood. And while Kinshiki shared a strong loyalty to Momoshiki, we shouldn't forget that Kaguya betrayed Ishhiki. So the chemistry of this mystery duo could be either similar to the other pairs, or something even brutal, which might involve killing each other for dominance. Assuming Shibai was the one who killed his subordinate, then Momoshiki's encoded statement makes perfect sense. There are other hints in the story, like Eida asking Boruto if he is actually 12 years old, which may be a symbolic reference to his real age as Shibai Otsutsuki, which spans thousands of years. Samurai 8, the incomplete manga of Kishimoto, also has a similar plotline where the main character obtains the powers of the god of the verse towards the endgame of the story. The reason Boruto's clothes have been torn the exact same way as Shibai could also signify his divine journey as a hidden Otsutsuki god. Now here is something interesting. All the other Otsutsuki wear white noble outfits, while Shibai is the only one wearing a tattered black attire. When Jigen envisioned Boruto and Kawaki as Otsutsuki in the manga, he imagined them wearing the same black outfits. So maybe the whole reason behind Shibai wearing black clothes is because he was never born as an Otsutsuki and was stuck in a time loop as Boruto, where he would always switch timelines to fix the things by being born as the prodigy, and for some reasons he would continue to do that till infinity unless the cycle gets broken. This explains the infinite possibilities that were created through the omnipotence of Kami Otsutsuki. Shibai could be trapped in a cycle where he tries to fix everything by getting reborn as Boruto in another timeline, yet somehow the same things happen. Boruto evolves into Shibai, then realizes that this timeline cannot be helped, so he decides to enter a new one, but unfortunately fails again. Now there must be something new in the present timeline where Boruto would hopefully break the cycle and fulfill the ultimate goal of Shibai, which dragged him to repeat the samsara cycle over ages. This would be symbolic to the reincarnation cycle of Ashura and Indra, as they were reborn as different people throughout ages till they reached a resolve. The key difference here is that Shibai uses omnipotence to enter a new timeline and start everything from scratch. Think of it as Future Trunks trying hard to fix the corresponding timeline, yet failing every time, leading to the events remain unchanged. On top of that, in the anime, Toneri is worried that with Destiny as Boruto's opponent, how exactly would he fight till the bitter end? Well, the whole notion of fighting his own destiny could symbolize his fate as Shibai Otsutsuki, who had been trying to amend some changes in every new timeline that he created, yet the bitter end makes him lose all his progress, forcing him to start from zero in a new timeline. So what exactly could be different in the present timeline which would help Boruto win over his destined fate? Well, I think the answer will be the Jogan, the pure eye, and in order to understand why it's like that, we will need to figure out Kashin Koji's method of making Boruto stronger, as it holds the blueprint to the Jogan's role in Boruto's destiny. Basically, Koji used his future knowledge to teach Boruto the overpower techniques in advance, making him more powerful than ever, so much that he even surpasses Borushiki pre-time skip. Now when it comes to the Jogan, I think it could grant him all the latent abilities of Shibai in advance, something that didn't happen in the other timelines, since he was never made this much powerful by Kashin Koji in any of them. And the fact that he has already become this strong in the present timeline, there's a good amount of chance for him to exceed his limits to unlock the purest form of an Otsutsuki god's power in this timeline, breaking the chain where he would at some point become Shibai and then repeat the cycle from level 1. The Jogan here could be the singularity which breaks him free from the trapped chain of events, meaning he's definitely going to go beyond the Kawaki battle from the future. Now let's understand the mythological aspect of his rebirth as Shibai Otsutsuki. There are many speculations for Shibai to become a Hagoromo sort of figure to Boruto, someone who would have achieved universal enlightenment after transcending mortality, and that's why he's now trying to fix something that can only be done from scratch. I won't be surprised if Boruto at some point would awaken the visions of his past life after entering the world of Otsutsuki, but anyway. So Shibai as a Buddha-like figure only proves that the story is deriving elements from different religions and mythologies, just like how Naruto had blended the elements from the Shinto, Buddhist and Hindu mythologies, Boruto is taking that one step further by introducing abilities such as the omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresent, the attributes of a divine being in Christian theology. So here is something that I think makes absolute sense and also adds to the God incarnate theory. Boruto could be the second coming of Shibai Otsutsuki, similar to Jesus Christ in Christianity, and here is how. In Boruto's lore, Shibai Otsutsuki stands as a transcendent being who ascended beyond mortality, leaving behind his divine remains. On the other hand, in Christian theology, God transcends the physical realm, existing beyond human limitation. Jesus Christ is seen as both divine and mortal, bringing the gap between heaven and earth. In Christianity, the second coming of Christ is the belief that Jesus will return, not as a weak carpenter, but as the glorified king who will fulfill divine judgment and renewal. So if Boruto is Shibai's reincarnation or the entity himself, then he represents the same divine return in human flesh. A being who was once thought gone now returns, concealed in mortal form but destined to reveal his godhood. And there is the concept of prophecy in Boruto too, which further amplifies this theory. Momoshiki's words have been foreshadowing Boruto's dark fate and divine path, where his very existence feels like it was pre-written, or let's say a part of a huge script. Similarly, in Christianity, the scripture prophesies the Messiah's second coming, an event long awaited where humanity looks for signs in times of crisis. Just as Christians wait for the return of Christ, the Narutoverse could unknowingly await the return of Shibai, who is reborn as Boruto this time. There are even some undeniable parallels which might stand as the cost of resurrection for Shibai. Boruto is branded as a fugitive, betrayed by destiny and forced into suffering. He walks a path of misery, sacrifice, and rejection. Jesus, on the other hand, in his first coming, suffered rejection, crucifixion, and death before an eventual resurrection and promised return. So Boruto's pain kind of parallels the first suffering of Christ, but the reincarnated Shibai or Boruto will later rise in full divine power, echoing the resurrection to return up. Shibai's name, meaning a dramatic play, also hints at him personating as Boruto for a greater mission, but when taken in account the suffering that the prodigy had to go through, I think these are just the trials of changing one's destiny to go from a transcended deity to an embodiment of divinity in human flesh. Momoshiki, referring to Boruto's inherited Otsutsuki power, is also a huge setup in itself. He tells him that he's too inexperienced to look at his own fate, meaning when he does gain some experience, he might not just be able to see his fate in a linear way, but also the glimpses of his past, which could unveil his secret pre-birth life as Shibai Otsutsuki. Okay, so now that we are done with my theory, it's time to explore the creativity that you guys have inked in the comments of my Shibai post. So the first theory comes from Justin Shaoub, and I would like to call it the karma of godhood. Basically, Justin believes that it's the fusion of Momoshiki and Boruto's souls that would create Shibai Otsutsuki. The theory asserts the life of Boruto as someone who becomes immortal, and with the passage of time, he will lose all his human connections. Boruto may be able to cheat death, since Otsutsuki laws prevent them from killing each other. So in order to become an Otsutsuki god, he could go on a journey of consuming chakra fruits just to become a godlike entity and go back in time to prevent the tragedy which originally put him on that path. Well, I like the base substance of this theory, as Boruto may have to struggle his way to become god just to go back in time and fix everything. That may be something that the original Shibai was doing too, no matter whether he belongs to this timeline or some other. So the whole notion behind this godly journey could be that Boruto realizing how hard it is to change the destiny of the universe. It's not as simple as reviving a person through unconventional means, just to make them eternal or cheat their death. Instead, it has something to do with the whole reality itself. So this may be the time when Boruto might have to pay the hefty price to correct everything from scratch. And the Momoshiki fusion theory is also good, as it reminds me of a similar speculation, which says that Boruto and Momoshiki together awaken the Jogen. It's the fusion of their powers which leads to that, and as I'm brainstorming more on this, I really feel like this deserves a full video of its own. So shout out to Justin for coming up with this. I will make sure to cook the best meal with this theory. Well, the next one is not a full-fledged theory, but it's a speculation that I think deserves some attention. This one comes from Matthew Gibson, with him stating that anyone with Otsutsuki DNA could become a vessel for Shibai. The rest of the theory states how Amado may also be a potential vessel, since he has seized the remains and all, but this Otsutsuki DNA part caught my eye for a number of reasons. So we know there are a few things that go down in the Otsutsuki clan. They have their own rules, laws, rulers, and most likely a hierarchy system as well. Momoshiki may not have made it obvious, but an Otsutsuki god could be a respectable stature among the members, regardless of the race to attain godhood which runs in the clan. We had Code obsessing over Ishhiki since he saw him as superior, and same may be the case for some certain cults of the clan who worship an Otsutsuki god. So not only should Shibai be able to make any Otsutsuki his vessel, but he must be able to bestow his powers to the most loyal followers. This kinda means that there may be more wielders of his powers such as the Jogan, but anyway, since Boruto became a pure Otsutsuki through Momoshiki, it just made him more suitable to attain godhood, which is the end goal that Shibai has already achieved. So this might only be possible due to the simple fact that Shibai either wants to make Boruto a godlike entity for some reason, or just as I explained in this video, they both may be the same person. Another thing which crossed my mind after reading Matthew's comment was that nearly everything in the Naruto verse has originated from the imagination of an Otsutsuki god called Kami. He may be the originator of chakra, as he provided different characteristics to different entities. So assuming this may be the case, all Otsutsuki must share some unique trait, which allows them to transfer or share powers. The Karma is a good example of this, but I guess in case of an Otsutsuki god, it goes a step further as he doesn't need any medium to give someone his powers. He could just use omnipotence to manifest whatever is possible within the limits of the universe. So I hope you guys enjoyed my alternate timeline theory. Here is some more amazing stuff that I want you to watch if you haven't already, and also I will be reading all the comments for this one, so make sure to drop your best takes, and I will see you next time.